Welcome back. You're with us on Halftime Report. Let's focus on the big global story now. U.S. President Donald Trump has approved the imposition of reciprocal tariffs on trade partners. He calls tariffs in India enormous and specifically points out to automobiles, pharma, steel and aluminum as key sectors in focus. Joining us now are tax experts. We have Mr. Sudhir Kapadia with us, as well as Anurag Sehgal, who's the managing director at Waterhouse. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us. So I think the details are yet to be worked out because the deadline that's been given is up till the 1st of April, where the US does its own math and then decides how much they're going to impose on every trade partner. But just opening thoughts, Mr. Kapadia, perhaps if I could come to you first. What the president also said overnight was that this is not just about a tit-for-tat, number-to-number, tariff versus tariff. He will take into account all other costs, including VAT, for instance, and other measures through which a country is making their exports more competitive to the US. What do you think perhaps lies ahead as these negotiations carry on?
Yeah, so I think first is on the first point, as we know, that's the really calling out China, I think, more than India, because it is a stated policy of China to support their exports. And that kind of detailing, if the US has to do, I don't think they will be singling out India only, but they will be doing this for across the board, is my personal view. So anyway, that's one point. I think the larger point is this, that India has a stated policy now of really correcting the inverted duty structure issues. A start has been made in recent budgets, including the last one. In fact, the last budget also announced the formation of a committee to look at customs duty rate rationalization. The point I'm making is that inverted duty structure rationalization helps Indian industry in any ways. To the extent those products get rationalized, I think that will appeal to countries like US as well. So I don't think it's either or. A lot of the effort which India will do will also speak positively to US interests. But last but not the least, the point which you made, Surabhi, initially, the reality is we are living in a world of gated globalization. We have seen this in the context of free trade agreements as well. And I see the linkage between tariffs and free trade agreements to get stronger. I also see the inevitable situation where each country will have a certain set of differential tariffs with certain countries, and India-US will not be an exception.
So far more nuanced, very carefully negotiated trade deals. Perhaps that's what the next couple of months will bring. Let me bring in Anurag into the conversation as well. Anurag, in terms of sectors which could perhaps face the wrath or face the ire of Mr. Trump, he's already called out automobiles. I mean, he said how difficult it is to come and sell, bring cars and sell them in India. What do you think could be hardest hit? Because again, it goes against Indian policy for years. India obviously has been levying very high duty on imported cars because we want to encourage domestic manufacturing. Your views?
Yeah, I would certainly say that President Trump has been highlighting India as a high tariff place for years. In fact, in his first term also, he used these words repeatedly for India. So whether it is cars, whether it is bikes, now if you see the document also which was released in fair and reciprocal tariff, he was very clear that motorcycles, India imposes a very high duty. You would see that India may reduce duties on these products, and India has taken a start. So the recent budget on which you see that motorcycle duties has been reduced to 30%. So India has taken a start. But having said that, larger point, I think, on cars or motorcycles for that matter, is to push India to come to a negotiating table. And therein, I think that the joint press statement of the president as well as Indian Prime Minister is very, very heartening, wherein they have said that there will be a trade deal in the making. Now, the contours of trade deal will be very important because they would want something to be delivered early this year. And therein, I clearly see, at least my sense is that the trade deal would focus on certain sectors of US export interest to India and certain sectors of India's export interest to the US. And let me be very clear in this. Cars or automobiles, or for that matter, even agriculture products as a bunch, are not very high on India's export to the US. So if you talk about reciprocal tariffs, India would actually get affected if they come on pharma products, if they come on, say, diamonds, if they come on certain engineering products, if they come on, say, auto parts. So India may not get very much affected, but I think the idea was to bring India to the negotiating table, and India has been very happy in negotiating the free trade agreements. Past 5-6 years, India has been negotiating with most of the developed countries. So I think India would be happy having a negotiated free trade deal with the US, is starting with a side deal, maybe.
Sure.
So that is a place to watch.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And the joint statement says that there should be a bilateral trade agreement, a new fair bilateral trade agreement by the fall of 2025. Very quickly, a little short on time on this conversation, Mr. Kapadia, but in terms of sectors where you think maybe we'll give a little, I think motorcycles and automobiles is a very short agenda that the US president has already laid out. Anything else where we perhaps would be willing to lower duties? Which could those sectors be? Any guesses at this point?
Yeah, it's difficult to guess the sector, but I think we have to remember that in general, the customs duty structure in India today is actually pretty moderate for most of the items. As we know, the higher duties, which you alluded to, the products, etc., are what India considers luxury products. Now, from a macro point of view, the market for that is still very limited. The impact of that on India, in my view, from a macro point of view, is very limited. So giving up so-called, higher tariffs for some of these products, I think is frankly more optics, which the US may want out of a deal. But I don't think it has such a dramatic impact as far as India is concerned. As I made the point earlier, I think actually I see this as a great opportunity just to articulate that further for India. We have talked about China plus one. I think a broader reduction in customs tariffs, especially as I mentioned, when it comes to the the raw materials and the intermediate products used by Indian industry, is more helpful for the Indian economy. It is more helpful for Indian industry in general. It also appeals to a lower tariff philosophy in the US today. And most importantly, will be a great competitive advantage vis-a-vis China, is how I look at it. So I think it's more opportunity than really negative.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for that brief take. A little short on time, but it's helpful context. Thanks for joining in. We have to take a very quick break on that note. Come back on the other side with more on the markets.